Listen, sorry to interrupt, but it really is important for us. If you can just hit the like and subscribe button, that allows us to bring you the very best financial intelligence and the best guests on the planet. Anyway, appreciate it. Like and subscribe.
We've seen this play out over and over again. Gaming industries are always the first to adopt new technology. They've been doing AI for years, right? Way before everybody else.
We believe one of the most powerful things about Sui is this thing called PTBs, programmable transaction blocks. They effectively let you treat smart contracts as nothing more than an API.
We build a foundation, all the tools for developers, and then we build an economy where, things are happening. There's finance, there's entertainment, there's gaming, there's a culture, there's commerce. It's all happening.
And our focus was always, we want to be by far the best developer platform in the ecosystem.
Welcome, everybody, to our realvision Masterclass series on the Sui platform. I'm very excited to bring back Adeniyi and Evan from the Mysten Labs. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
So today we're really going to do a deep dive into all things Sui. We hope to give our audience a really high-level overview of some of the things that they've been accomplishing, so some of their plans for the future, a little bit of background on their history and motivations. And then we'll continue on with the series in future episodes to do some really deep dives on some very exciting things that they're working on. So first of all, why don't we start with kind of the leadership structure of Sui? And Evan, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and your title and role, and then we'll move on to Adeniyi.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Evan. I'm the co-founder CEO of Mysten Labs.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adeniyi. I'm co-founder, chief product officer of Mysten Labs. I work for Evan.
Excellent. And so, tell us a little bit about your background, like where you guys came from and how you decided to team up and build the world's best blockchain network.
Evan. So a little bit background. I've been in tech for 27 years, did a couple of startups, did my usual big tech kind of thing, 10 years at Apple, then 6.5 years Facebook. My primary background back in the Apple days is developer tooling, developer platform, more specifically programming language, compiler runtime, right? That's where I did a lot of the contribution to computer science. I was the 2012 co-recipient of the 2012 ASEAN Systems Award that's given to people who made, sort of like major contribution to the world of software systems. Earlier recipients, including, Mark Andreessen for, the browser, for people inventing Java and TCP/IP. This is literally some of the people who deliver the most amount of impact in a practical terms, turning theory into, systems, right? So that's my background. I always love hard problems. I love hard engineering challenges. I love hard theoretical challenges, even though I don't have a really strong theoretical kind of formal, theoretical background. But these things fascinate me. I want to look forward. So very, very naturally, right? So for me in 2015, 2016, when I look at the landscape of blockchain, I already bought into the thesis of what it can do, why it's important. But when I look into the actual kind of landscape, I realize one area that this entire industry is very weak at is in programming language in runtime. Most of the dominant players there, Ethereum of the world, mostly using so that these some, for lack of a better term, fairly, kind of poorly implemented kind of programming language or runtime for the blockchain. And I thought that's where I will enter. And lo and behold, right, fast forward a couple of years, right, after I sort of spent some time working with other industry players as advisor, kind of promoting the opportunity around blockchain and cryptocurrency inside Facebook. I joined the Libra project. So I was leading the R&D team They're doing a lot of heavy lifting in terms of obviously the Move programming language. That's where Sam, our CTO and co-founder CTO, sort of like focuses attention on building and broaden it to a number of very, very sort of cutting edge areas on distributed system, protocol design, security. We would, sort of really, really looking into the whole landscape, right? We had the first kind of formally verified framework that's continuous to verify in production, all that accomplishments. And obviously, the challenge was a Libra project. Didn't launch, but by then we have figured out so much. We're figuring out how conventional blockchain really will hit like severe limitations. With a lot of real world use cases, we wanted to come out and build a real platform. Really taking our experience and knowledge, kind of build a new internet. Really, that's the sort of the scope. That's the opportunity we saw, and we sort of went all in late 2021.
My background's a bit different. I started off as a software engineer and working at a startup actually that was building software for monitoring oil wells remotely. So I started off building hardware and also writing software to run that hardware at the same time. Really challenging, had a really good time. I got to learn a lot. I love startups because you get to be very broad in your skill set. Then moving from then, I decided to go to finance, started working on trading systems, risk management systems. And interestingly, while working in the finance space in about 2011, I found out about technology called Bitcoin. I read the white paper, very excited about it. Thought it was a bit of a scam at the beginning just because the idea of like a bunch of crypto people creating money out of nothing seemed a bit weird. And, at the time when I looked at the systems we had in banks to do a trade from start to finish, very convoluted because we didn't have a single world view of what was happening across the bank beyond just our own bank, but other accompanying institutions as well. And that got me to read the paper again. I really got enamored thinking this is amazing. Like it would be great if we had a world where we had these shared ledgers that allows us to really remove a lot of the waste that we built in banking systems. I got red-pilled into Bitcoin. I started buying Bitcoin. Then I started mining Bitcoin to the point where I had too many machines in my house running all the time, making a lot of noise. We had no spare room. I got an ultimatum, kick the machines out or you get out. I started moving machines to the data centers. I started mining at a larger scale. And at that point, people started asking me to mine on their behalf because I started being an evangelist for Bitcoin. I was telling everybody about Bitcoin. And I remembered I decided to just run a website to see, hey, I wonder if other people want this. I built a system that allows you to basically, it effectively tokenizes your access to the hardware, and it was called Bitcoin Mining Contract that I created back then. And I ended up building one of the largest Bitcoin mines in the world at the time. I think we controlled close to 10 to 15% of Bitcoin hash rate at one point. I got out of that business eventually once I realized other people in some countries were mining for free. I thought, okay, it's my time to get out. I ultimately got involved with enterprise. At some point, I started building. I felt Bitcoin was always going to be slow. It was never going to speed up. It's great that we have this store of value, but the principle I had learned in banking is how do we take this software to the enterprise world and make everybody use it? And I thought the right thing to do is go to enterprise and build an enterprise. So I went to Oracle and VMware. I launched blockchain products for them. And I very quickly became very disillusioned with the idea of enterprise systems, enterprise companies starting their own blockchain. They can never agree on who was owner of a consortium, who got to vote, who got to decide. And I think ultimately the Switzerland idea came to mind. Right? Like you just need somewhere where everyone's got the same rules and you all agree or you don't agree. And what Facebook was building in Libra seemed the right way to go. That you've already built a consortium, you all have a shared agenda of what you're trying to achieve and you all build it together. That was a bootstrap issue that I'd seen all over and over again at enterprise. So I joined the Libra team. This is where I met Evan. Very, very quickly, I was working on something called Identity. I shut that project down very quickly, but I was looking for what am I going to do next? And I met these crazy people in the research team building amazing, amazing stuff. And my strong point has always been taking very complicated things and making it productizable or allowing other people to understand it where you can actually drive value out of it. And Evan and I really hit it off. I started working with Evan and the research team, and it was one of the best experiences I ever had. I always say Facebook is the second best job I've ever had. And I think my best job I've had is being co-founder of Mysten Labs.
Enjoying the show? Well, you can download my guide on how to unfuck your future. It's free and it's right there in the description. Just click that link. I think you'll love it.
Wow, that's a fantastic introduction, gentlemen. I think there's this really powerful combination of kind of this theoretical and very technical side and a very product-oriented side, implementation side, real world, rubber meets the road. So I think you've both been front row to all of the problems that we've had in blockchain, the trilemma, and scalability, and then eventually distilling this down into something that's useful for the whole world and bringing it to the world. So I think it just naturally, I guess, stemmed from your relationship. So excellent summary. So one thing that you mentioned, Evan, was the move language, which is in and of itself, is an attempt, I think, to solve some of the problems in the existing blockchain language space, the EVM and other kind of limiting languages. But what is move, and why do you think that move is going to be widely adopted, for example? What aspects of it make it compelling for developers?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, right? Back then, we look at a number of options, right? We look at, kind of using Solidity like an EVM like everybody else. We quickly throw that out of the window. We talk about WASM. We think about, maybe a subset of, and superset of Rust. None of those options, meets the criteria, right? So what are the criteria, right? So we're talking about a smart contract platform. The whole point is for software, with decentralized software to essentially perform functions for human, right? This intermediate for software to, provable, correct, trusted software to replace intermediary that's run by human, right? Which we're agreed and can come into play, right? So to do that, then what's the criteria, right? The language has to be safe, has to be provably safe, has to be correct, cannot be a foot gun for developers to shoot themselves in the foot, right? If you ask them to do things that's unnatural or difficult to get right, they will get it wrong, essentially, right? And then let's go a step deeper, right? And it's to be approachable, cannot be so esoteric. Like purely functional language is very, very hard to, for even somebody who's like heavy into programming language to be proficient in. It's hard, right? We're not like Gen Streets, right? Also, has to be easy to be sort of modular to build on top of, right? To share codes, for it to be easy to understand, and furthermore, has to have a few key properties, right? Has to have this concept of, well, this is a language for describing the actions, the semantics about assets, what they compose of, how do you compose different assets together? How do assets interact with each other? What are the rules around ownership, right? Can they be expressed easily? Can it be enforced by, runtime? So you remove that, sort of like a lot of the common mistakes the developer will make, right? We're seeing that reentrancy problems, a lot of times mistakes from forgetting to check ownership some place, or simple copy and paste error, expose attack vectors, right? So has to be able to be instrumentable, right? Meaning like metering has to be correct, right? Because you want to calculate, gas, right? Precisely, and it cannot be a black box, cannot be like, sort of mushy, right? The rules has to be very, very clear. And again, runtime enforcement, right? So you remove sort of all the potential kind of gotchas. So all that combined, meaning you really cannot use any of the conventional language. They're not built for this. And to retrofit them for this purpose means you kind of basically throw away all the benefit of having, using a conventional already mainstream language like Rust, because you have to restrict it, you have to build all kind of new tools, you have to change a lot of things, and it's too big, too, unwieldy. It's like WASM, similar kind of problem. There's also only the runtime. Again, it's not a general purpose programming language, right? You have to define it very specifically for this purpose. And you cannot have runtime behavior, dynamic behavior like Solidity in Ethereum is guaranteed to be, exploited over and over and get delegation. The whole programming model around, sort of interface-based kind of a, standard, it's wrong, right? I mean, I can go into a debate with programming language people, and mostly you agree with it. So that's just the wrong way to build a language, because the adoption, how you think about adoption, a standard, and how to verify every implementation actually conform to the standard, it just doesn't work, right? There's so many things wrong with all the other options. So very, very clear to us. It's like, let's build a new language, and we build Move, and we literally brought in some of the heavy hitters in programming language to build this thing, right? It's insane the amount of talent that work on this programming language, and it becomes an enormous success, right? Initially for Libra, we were able to build complex framework that governs how the blockchain runs, the frameworks to govern how off-chain protocol dealing with, kind of interacting with off-chain entities, these different kind of payment scenarios, everything in Move, and have a completely verified, formally verified, mathematically proven they're correct, and have the tools to be able to tell us what we got wrong, right? I remember this example where I forgot to check, if the sender and receiver are the same, right? It's like, things that you don't naturally think about. All that, and have running in production continuously. It's basically like sort of like the world's first at that scale. All that was proven inside Facebook was the project, and naturally the broader sort of community realized something magical is available to them. So the adoption of Move started to happen even before Mysten became a thing, right? Outside Libra, and now it's spreading like wildfire, right? People are realizing this is a step level change, right? This is what it really needs. People, this industry needs, and now there's more adoption across the industry. And I think that would naturally draw a lot of people to be proficient in Move, right? If they're interested in the problem. And there's also generally just a very approachable language. Like it just feels right. It's designed right for the interaction, for modeling assets, for the modeling the interaction between assets, for modeling ownership, coordination kind of problems. And I think what we're getting the feedback from students, from developer alike, this is really, really at least a 10x improvement in terms of the use, kind of developer experience and getting things right. So yeah, it's up and running. It's a thing. Even if you don't think about Sui, right? Move is a big movement.
It's funny because it's a beautiful incubation story, but it's born from this recognition that the existing code and languages were insufficient for the task at hand. And I don't think people appreciate in the audience maybe how much the complexity increases from something like Bitcoin, which is just, basically like hashing and getting consensus, to something that is programmable. And you have all of these different things that can interact with each other. And that level of complexity just explodes. And so you need to handle it carefully and have a system that's extremely robust, because it's very difficult to imagine all the possible scenarios of interaction. And so you want to get it at a very fundamental level correctly, so that when you build these very complex architectures on top, they don't fall down, they don't collapse on you, or there's no way for someone to break in the building and exploit something. So I think that's excellent. So is there this community then of developers then around Move, and are they, maybe part of the spearhead that could be contributing to the Sui ecosystem in the future? Is that something you envision?
Yeah, very much so, right? I mean, this is an example, like people always say, oh yeah, the best technology doesn't always win, right? But this is one example where that's not right? Whether that saying is completely incorrect. You have to meet some minimum viable bar, right? For programming language, right? People don't understand that how important for the language design, specifically for the job, is important, right? You have to meet that bar, right? can this language, can the runtime get the job done and just get it done correctly? And I think people understand it, right? Like I say, even outside of Sui, there's so much interest and tension in Move, right? Period. Now, what we've done is we have really rethink, okay, now we have a foundation, a great programming language. We all know how blockchains are built. Let's rethink other aspects of this, right? We rethink programming model, right? Now we have actually a data model in terms of how we think about things are tracked on Sui is done correctly. Can we build a better programming model that fits our needs, right? Imagine a world where all these billions of assets being modeled on Sui, how they interact with each other. This interaction can be simple, can be complex. We want to enable code composability. We want to enable data composability in a manner that remove a lot of friction for building complex smart contracts and what that would look like. So really is the next iteration. It's not as much of a language iteration rather than sort of iteration around how to program smart contract, how to program a blockchain. It's a programming model iteration, and the language is iterated and improved upon to support that. So that combination together just make the developer experience, so much better, even over other Move platforms. And that's the key here, right? So we're seeing this very, very clear kind of magical thing that's happening. People come to Sui expecting to, they love Sui. They see a lot of good things about Sui. They are veteran smart contract developer, but they expect a learning curve that's quite steep, right? It's a new language, a new platform, different frameworks, different building blocks. Everything is different. The concept of blocks are different. The concept of coins are different. Must take some time to get there. They end up always overestimate. Like I cannot just, there's so many examples say, okay, they say, well, we think we can go aggressive. We're going to take us 4 months to build a new application on Sui. They get it done in 1 month, like repeatedly, over and over and over again. Like this is happening. Then something magical has happened, right? This is built right. Obviously, there's still a lot of things we're building, a lot of the improvement. The team's literally like, sort of cooking right now, thinking about how they can evolve the language to be even better. The tooling is still a lot of things that the conventional general purpose language, the popular language have that we may not have quite baked, quite mature yet. But even the current state is so much better than everything else out there. We're seeing that.
If I jump in, I'd say Mysten Labs represents, or even the Sui blockchain represents probably the highest concentration of intellectual capital in this space for what we're trying to do. From cryptography, programming languages, storage, everything related, which is now we have a new protocol for storage called Walrus. Like the intellectual capital is so concentrated within Mysten because you need that to solve very, very, very hard problems. And you genuinely have found in the past that either a team is just a bunch of strong engineers, but no theoretical background to actually come up with the formal proofs of the system. I don't want to give examples of chains like that, but there are many. Or they're strong cryptographers, don't know how to build programming languages, or they're strong programming languages developers, don't know how to build a strong cryptographic system. They're always lacking something. Whereas Mysten's very well rounded. We have experts in programming languages, we have experts in compiler technology, we have experts in distributed systems, we have experts in cryptography, we have experts in product. So all that you need to build an actual developer platform that is going to cater for devs, but also allow them to reach out to you, to consumers, is there within Mysten. And I exemplify that by the following. When we built Sui, we were always thinking, okay, for a developer, who are they solving for? Who do they need to onboard? What are the challenges they have today for onboarding people? One of the things we agreed on, wallets are the dumbest thing we've ever built. How do we get people away from the concept of wallets? Having long form addresses are so stupid. Why do we have to let people typing addresses and private keys and everything like that? How do we get rid of that? The gas idea is just ridiculous. Why do you ask me to download an app, go and buy some token, then start to interact? And after, it's just so silly. We've gone backwards in time with the Web3 tech that exists today. So we started from a perspective of we want to solve problems for devs, but also devs service users. We want to solve problems for the entire workflow. We have ZK login, meaning you can sign in using just your email or Facebook account, Kakao, you name it. Any Web2 identity you have today, you can leverage that without middleware to sign in and create an account on Sui. Separately, we have sponsored transactions. So not only can you sign in with your email address, now you could also transact on Sui without ever the idea of gas being something you ever see. We have a feature coming out soon where you could transact just watching ads. Apps can implement now, so you never have to pay for gas ever again. Wow. Separately, the idea we mentioned is having these long, account numbers. How do I send Evan money? Evan, give me your, 32 byte, whatever. It doesn't make any sense, right? So we have name systems in Sui that's native and subdomain systems. So not only can I create my own name and I can give you my name is @Adeniyi, for example, if you want to send me anything. But if I'm within an app, we have an app called Stash. It would just be Adeniyi @Stashed. So the email notation, the way in which you send email in the future is going to be the same way in which you send value. So we always said the internet is great for sending data. It is terrible for transferring value. Sui lets you transact with both data and value at the same time in a very seamless way. So Sui is the only platform that has thought about that from start to finish. No other chain does that. They're all building platforms for platform's sake, not thinking, who are the devs, who are the users, what do I need to solve, how do we onboard, how do we blow this thing up to make sure everybody can onboard. So we believe by 2030 there'll be a massive amount of games that have adopted this technology into its underlying tool set. And we believe Sui will be up there as probably having way more users than any other chain in the world, simply because its principles are built from day one and they're implemented from day one. It's hard to do this after the fact. So
if I may interject.
Go ahead.
You cannot engineer your way out of bad design, right? This is what people don't understand, right? Our thesis is very simple. The blockchain before Sui was based on, at the foundation, a bad design. We can talk about scalability, like a front-run blocking kind of pipeline doesn't make sense. There's a lot of other design so fundamentally wrong. You cannot engineer your way out of it, right? A lot of the sort of the efforts around L2s and all that, in our opinions, is sort of trying to engineer your way out of the fundamentally a broken design. So we want to take a step back, right? Saying, okay, let's figure out in first principle what that design look like, and then we apply the best engineering, right? And to build a system that's just a platform that's just unrivaled.
Wow, you can't build the tallest building in the world without having a strong foundation to build on. So you have to start there. It has to be right at the beginning. That's amazing. And it's incredible that there's much value already on these legacy blockchain systems. It's a little scary that they architected these house of cards, the technical house of cards for now. But I'm also super excited that there's this movement here, no pun intended, to build on a really strong foundation and a real Web3 to replace Web2. So I'm super excited. And this leads me to my next question, because we're going to ask about how we do onboard, billion, 2 billion, 3 billion people. And you've already prefaced that. Basically, part of that is making sure you onboard the developers who have those billions of people in mind and give them the tooling they need to build the kinds of products that are human. They're not machine. We talk about wallet addressing and all these complexities, and that stuff should all be abstracted away and made human.
I can touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
We launched a service earlier this year called Inoki, and the purpose of Inoki is to give people API access to Sui without even writing a smart contract. And that's largely proven successful. People are onboarding that at a very rapid pace. Like even the ecosystem devs are using it as a way to pay for gas for their users, not worry about gas, give domain names to every single person that joins their application. And that's starting to really proliferate in the ecosystem. We believe one of the most powerful things about Sui is this thing called PTBs, programmable transaction blocks. They effectively let you treat smart contracts as nothing more than an API. So without writing a single smart contract, I can construct interactions between multitude of assets or multitude of smart contracts with Rust, C++, C, whatever I want to write in. I can basically construct interactions between these smart contracts with just a traditional programming language. And I now treat Sui as nothing more than, atomic APIs, which you don't get in Web2, right? Like if I want to say, I want to buy a concert ticket, At the same time, buy the concert ticket, I want to buy my flight. At the same time, buy my flight, I want to do something else, right? And you want to construct them all as one single interaction. No blockchain lets you do that. You need to go approve on one, wait till the next. Maybe you're sold out by that time. Like, there's no way to really orchestrate human interaction on the kind of scale you can on Sui.
On the client side, basically, the magic is on the client side, right? You can do that on, say, other platform theoretically, but you have to write very complex smart contract to
orchestration code.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, an average dev can just simply pick that up. We actually have people building front-end UIs for this, where you could look at the smart contracts in Sui, click a few buttons and orchestrate things together, because it's so easy now. Like, you might not ever need to write a single smart contract. This is, when people say composability in Web3, it's mostly a myth, right? Like, you don't really have permissionless composability. This whole API thing, this whole thing about interfaces, is not. That's not how you do it. Whereas with Sui, you have that true permissionless composability, because everything is very object-based. You know what the object is. You know what the properties are. You know what function you're calling. You know you can take an object and put it into a function. Like, those natural things that developers want is available within Sui very, very quickly, which is why devs are finding Sui is very easy to learn, and they pick it up very, very quickly because of that. It's very natural from a programming language perspective to use Sui. It's not like, it's not going to be zero work. There's some effort to learn the concepts, but it's a natural progression for any traditional software engineer.
So how does it look right now with regards to adoption of both Move and Sui as a network? How does that curve look like? Are we essentially, now on the steep side?
Sui is 1 year and 4 months old, right? It's the most popular Move blockchain, period, by quite a long stretch. I believe the last Lecture Capital report showed that Sui was really one of the fastest growing dev platforms in the world. Beyond that, Sui's TVL is in the top 7 for a chain that's been around for a very short time. Chains like AVAX, Optimus, you name it, a lot of these chains we've gone way above them because of the principles I mentioned around PTBs. Basically, funds or pools of liquidity are a lot more optimal on Sui. There's a lot of big opportunity to actually make more arbitrage on Sui than you get anywhere else. It's exemplified by Bluefin, who came over from Arbitrum. They realized very quickly that their traders were 20x more profitable on Sui than it could be on an L2. So There's actual chances to build things that are more optimal on Sui than you can anywhere else. This is what's showing Sui's growth. So number 7 in terms of TVL. Probably, I believe we're like top 7 as well when it comes to trading volume. So it's not just liquidity that's dumb, sat there doing nothing. It's actually being used. So yeah, the adoption number, I think we have over a million daily actives as well on the network as well. So it's growing really, really fast.
Yeah, this is again, right? Developer platform first. Remember, it's about the developers and what do a developer needs. They need to make money. They need to make a living. And they usually, right? What is this space all about? It's a business model change, right? Now we're talking about individual developers can build financial products and make a living out of it, right? We are seeing that in DeFi. There's going to be more example of this in other verticals as well, right? And that's magical. Kind of for years, right? Even now, right? A lot of challenges around how do you build open source software and make a living out of it, right? Do you have to upsell, right? A premium product, which goes away from open source in another way, right? But open source is what the world demands today, right? Everything has to be open, transparent, verifiable. Well, so there's fundamentally shift in business model this enables. The developers are coming because they see a platform, they're given the opportunity, the best opportunity to build new kind of business that can last. We build a foundation, all the tools for developers, and then we build an economy where, things are happening. There's finance, there's entertainment, there's gaming, there's a culture, there's commerce. It's all happening. And now sort of like, that just, the adoption curve is starting to go vertical, right? It's never a coincidence, right? It's not something you can fake it. The community doesn't get built just because they have faith or blind belief, right? We talk about this being a cult, but there's got to be something real, right, happening as well. So when everything is coming together, economic activities are picking up, developer activity are also picking up, and that's just sort of like coming together, and you see this sort of amplification happening, right? It's just going faster and faster, and the broader adoption of sort of the broader ecosystem, right? The broader industry is also happening at the same time. Then you got this kind of things all coming together, and you see, the numbers go vertical as a result.
Yeah, this is a beautiful confluence, and it compounds on itself. And these attributes that were so fundamental start just building and building and building, and it runs away automatically. It just doesn't, you don't have to force it.
You build the right foundation to support that. So you don't get this effect, right? The going grows and then hits a wall, right? Because there's some hard limitation either in the technology or in other areas that prevent that growth from continuing. Right? We've seen that multiple times already, right? It's, I think, seems to be going well until it hits a wall, until some big attack happens, until people lose faith in what you can serve them, until you have no choice but going back to centralization or centralized kind of a technology to solve your scalability or performance problem. And guess what? Then fragmentation happen or expose your underlying limitations in terms of user experience or developer experience or security. That things limit growth. These kind of issues limit growth, right? So again, coming back, right, I want to harp on this again. Sorry for harping on this, right? The best technology doesn't always win, but you need to hit certain level.
It's a prerequisite.
Yes, it's a prerequisite. Then you can have escape velocity.
It's funny because earlier we discussed about how in Web3 evangelizing projects is very common because most people have a kind of self-interest that's aligned with the growth of the network. The network itself here seems to be self-evangelizing. In other words, it has the properties that it promotes itself. It, as passionate as the community can be, can only bring you so far. And at the end of the day, the technology has to speak for itself. The services and products have to speak for themselves. And then that's really what propels the 2, 3, 4 billion people to come online. So that's super exciting.
The analogy I've always given is in regards to imagine a world where you get to own the protocols that you use on a regular basis. And in order to drive value out of the protocol, you give back to the protocol to drive value. Sui, for example, I get to own a piece of the underlying, coordination layer for the internet that allows you to move value. And in making use of it, I give back to the community in the form of gas. It's a self-fulfilling thing, ultimately. And I find that hard to compete with when you think about traditional business models. How does a traditional business compete with that mechanism, right? You're bought in by owning a piece of it, and then you give back in regards to extracting value. That is a fundamental shift from an economic point of view of how the balances of users, owners, ecosystem, supporters, promoters, like it's a weird model that I think is going to be foundational to how you monetize open source software in the future. And I think anybody that wants to build open source and want to coordinate interactions between assets, they're going to have to build it on a platform that has the users, that has the composability, that has the flexibility that Sui has. So I think we've done a really good job in building that. Another interesting point is when Sui went live, we did not do the traditional thing that everybody does in the ecosystem is just give away tokens, airdrop, right? Because we knew it was going to basically attract the worst demographic or the lowest common denominator of users to the platform. And if you benchmark Sui to every other protocol at the same time that did airdrops, Sui is fundamentally acres above everyone else that's done that. Also, how you launch your network matters. Who are you trying to attract? What are the value propositions you're offering to devs? And our focus was always, we want to be by far the best developer platform in the ecosystem. And I think we hit that on the head. And now we're reaping the rewards where devs are starting to see, I can build here, the ROI is way higher because there's way more optimization to what I can do from a contract perspective than exists anywhere else. The tools are just there to onboard users, so my cost of user acquisition will be significantly lower on Sui than it would be anywhere else. There are just many values, right? I can store data on chain and I have to worry about using IPFS or some other third-party service. Like, you name it. I could build better product as a result of building on Sui, and that's what we want. Like, we want you to be on Sui because it allows you to build things you can't build anywhere else. That's the goal.
And also, very, very important, you do not have to go back to a centralized solution, right? Yeah. This is where the internet went wrong, right? The internet was built for P2P, right? Anybody has your play field. Guess what? It's really, really hard It's really hard to build in that model. But guess what? Go back to centralization, right? Having a middleman provide services such as discovery, completely fair. But guess what, right? Once they have the network effect, right, they have the power, right? And they start extracting
platform
of it. We're seeing the same thing again in Web3, right? Before Sui come along. But this is why we're solving the problem in a very, very kind of, step by step, right? This is why we're introducing Walrus, right? The next one is like, okay, now you can imagine hosting the front end of your product on completely decentralized solution, right? That take away that need to go back to centralization, right? Or Sui was already doing that, right? You can store the important states about your asset on chain. You don't have to do sort of off-chain gymnastic, right? To do then say, oh, we compress it, we have indexer providing service, right? That's all centralized solution. We don't need a layer 2 for centralized sequencing to provide scalability, so to speak, right? We think in terms of, sort of like
horizontal
elasticity, right, of supply and demand, completely decentralized solution, right? Anytime you have a limitation in your design, you have to fall back to centralization. You expose problems, right? You're going to basically make your job a lot harder, and make your product a lot worse as a result.
You guys are perfect straight men. You robbed me of two of my best questions. The first was, why the tokenization, why the distribution the way it was, and what were you thinking at the time, which you answered perfectly. And then the second was, what kind of values did you really champion in the beginning in terms of that permissionlessness, scalability, decentralization? And I think both of you hit it on the head. This was all pre-thought. It was pre-planned in advance to make sure that when you did launch, that you didn't have to worry about fixing those problems in motion. It's like changing the engine of a train while it's in motion. It's very, very difficult. And
it's fundamentally because we've taken a long-term view on success for Sui. If we could have taken many shortcuts. For example, we could have just decided to launch with Libra. We could have taken the Libra code base, it's open source, launched with Libra. Another chain did that. We think that was a bad idea. We didn't do that. We chose to take our time and build something brand new, and take the risk and build something brand new with all the things we've learned over time, and take a long-term view on success. And I think that's where it pays off. You see a lot of networks who are launching, it's another derivative of ETH. It's a fork of this, a fork of that. It's just a monetization of infra, and VCs keep falling for it. They just keep paying for infra over and over and over again. Our goal was very, very different from day one. Like, we want to build the best platform. Okay, it means we're going to have to take some risk. It means we're going to have to take our time. It means we're going to have to learn a bit more about what developers want. And it's always a constant progression. We're always getting dev feedback with every release, and we're finding out, okay, how do we solve the next developer-related problem? This is a cycle that we're always undergoing. We have a team that's very passionate about devs, very passionate about dev tooling, and we want to make sure we're the best in that space.
Yeah, and no team, no one can figure everything out upfront, right? But you got to lay the right foundation, which means re-examine everything, first principle thinking. Then you never deviate from what's most important, right? Is again, we are not going back to centralized solutions. We do not want centralized solution, right? This is what's about. As much as possible, we want this to avoid that, right? Everything you do. So we could adopt other kind of centralized solution for social logging, for onboarding, right? But ZK logging was designed to be a protocol level primitive, right? No central involved here to make that happen. So these principles are very, very crucial.
So, wow. Okay. So that hits on a kind of a lot of questions then. Legacy institutions and enterprises, if they want to participate in the Sui ecosystem, we've got the prereqs of a good programming language, fundamentals, scalability, et cetera. What is it that you think would kind of convince them to use this network above, say, a Solana or an Ethereum or whatnot? Why come to Sui?
So first of all, go ahead, Evan.
No. I mean, I was going to say it's a lot we talked about, right? Principle and our ability to execute on that principle, right? Proven it, continually shipping, continually getting feedback from developers and implement the right solution for them. And our design to this point has sort of meet the test, right? There's a lot of question about this new kind of, rather going away from address-based model to asset-based model is proven itself, right? Everything is just come up better. So believe that we prove ourselves, and we understand their pain points, from Adeniyi's background, for other people's background that understand developers' needs, understand product, and be able to solve problems for them. So that should give, and has given people a lot of trust and belief in us. And this is why we have those kind of a big partner that's coming to us.
Evan answered it perfectly. I don't have to add anything to that.
Great. That's perfect. Yeah, you guys keep teasing Walrus, and we're definitely going to use another session to do a deep dive in that. I think that's going to be amazing. But you also mentioned gaming. And what role do you think gaming is going to play on Sui? Why is that exciting? Is it part of the culture? Is it part of the community narrative?
We have a lot of gamers in the company for sure. But ultimately, look, if for us, it's not good to be 1x, 2x, 3x better. We want to be 100x better. And one of the areas that adopts technology the fastest is games. Also, it's a very low barrier to entry for people to engage. The idea of asset ownership is very natural in that space. And we think ultimately, like, which technology is going to facilitate game studios to connect better with their fan base or players, and also give them ownership in the games that they play over time. We believe it's the best on-ramp to Web3. Unfortunately, for games right now, they've been forced to do all sorts of gymnastics, get people to download wallets, get people to pay gas. The gas fees are high, so don't play right now, or we just batch upload later. Like, it's just been really poor experiences, and it forces you to play. The kind of things you can design are not very great. The game studios are trusting Sui, trusting our team, because one, we do have a background in the industry. But more importantly, we understand the problems they have and what they're trying to solve. They ultimately want to build more engaging games. They want to increase the shelf life of the game. They want to be able to get the players to have ownership in some of the decision-making in the game lore over time. So the technology in Sui allows that. They can log in with their normal Google account or whatever account they want, whatever mechanisms they want. They don't have to worry about gas. Ownership is something natural. Transferring assets is seamless. They never have to expose keys or addresses to users. So we believe it's going to be the biggest growth potential. Last year, 3.3 billion gamers spent over $200 million on games. That's more than movies, more than music as a whole. Gaming is huge, and we think it's going to be the biggest adoption curve for Web3. Unfortunately, most blockchains have promised scale. They've promised adoption. It's never been possible. When a game gets successful, you get penalized by the platform, because whenever you have surge pricing, it's basically a penalization of being successful. Unfortunately, whether you're doing well or your neighbor's doing well, you all pay a higher price. So Sui does not have this type of issues. Evan, I know you
I'll touch on a couple of things, right? First, from the technical front of why gaming is important, why game is such a sort of like showcase of Sui, right? One, game assets are fundamentally hierarchical, right? They're composable. You have a character, they acquire assets in the game, right? That hierarchical, view maps perfectly to Sui's object-centric view, right? Where objects are objects, right? Everything is modeled correctly, right? Try to map that to other blockchain model. It's a nightmare. It's very difficult. Two, I think fundamentally people are not, the people outside the industry miss the point of what digital asset ownership really is about, right? You can have something that's very, very basic, right? A JPEG. You can make 1,000 copies of it. They're all the same. What makes a blockchain-based asset different? Why is it important for gaming? Because the history matters. That's where the value comes from. Memorabilia. You understand, right? Having a signature of the player means the asset's worth a lot more. It's the same thing in gaming. The sword that take down the boss, there's a history attached to it that makes it far more valuable than equivalent copy. Otherwise, where the value come from for digital asset, that is where it's come from. The history, right? The lore, right? All that is provenance is what makes it more valuable, right? So that's very, very important. But that's a technical front. Let's talk about why gaming is important in the first place. We've seen this play out over and over again. Gaming industries are always the first to adopt new technology. They've been doing AI for years, right? Way before everybody else. And why is that? it's such a competitive industry. They're always looking for an edge over the competition. They're always looking for opportunity to change the business model, right? Gaming continuously evolve its business model, going from selling a distribution of goods in a more traditional sense, right? You buy a copy, you play it, you try to maybe resell it, or then transform to selling the license or shareware model, free-to-play model. It was considered the devil back then, right? How can you do that? But they actually figure out monetization of a network, a monetization of community. Most of players don't pay. Free-to-play, they enjoy the benefit of it. They enjoy the whales, the willing to spend the money. Some people, are the one that's being monetized, but they benefit from having the community around them, right?
Yeah.
All that sort of thing is gaming, right? Without gaming, they probably, I don't know when we're going to have social media, right? It's the same model. Have most people benefit from having free access to the service and don't have to pay anything, but only monetizing off the few that are willing to pay, right? Some people have more money than time. Some people more time than money, right? This works out. So having developers that are looking for the tools to change the business model and be willing to adapt to it, and for the consumer to benefit from that evolution of business model and the product, it's a perfect match, right? This is, again, why gaming is so important for us and for the industry.
It seems like a natural, in kind of like a activator of network effects. The network effects are where the value comes from, and there are individuals who are willing to help subsidize overall use for everybody because it's enjoyable. Humans are closer together, and they're on a framework.
Yeah, and this time maybe the network effect doesn't just benefit the few; it benefits everybody, right? And that's ultimately what this is about.
That seems to be the underwriting theme of the Sui team. That your value set is it seems to be to have a more egalitarian network effect for people, and that in itself is conducive to bringing liquidity and bringing activity and bringing composability and even the provenance that you talked about, and having a deep, rich history, and that lends itself to culture, and that's just a self-dynamic process. I think that brings a lot of value. So that's excellent. So there's a few things I'd love to touch on with time. Things like if you can give a little summary of what Deepbook is and SuiNS and what the Sui Play 0x1, if that's how you pronounce it right, these kinds of things that are going on. Maybe if you want to touch on them.
Yeah, I can touch on each one of them. Deepbook is a central limit order book, effectively a high-performing central limit order book on chain. Typically, it's been impossible to build full clubs on chain directly because you need high bandwidth, low cost. Traders need to be able to move positions in and out very, very quickly. It's an efficient mechanism for allowing people to trade. It's basically, you take a centralized exchange model of how you trade, and now people make markets. You put on a decentralized infrastructure like a blockchain. Sui is the only one that lets you do that at scale. So it now gives every protocol in the Sui ecosystem, anybody that wants to build on Sui, or especially a financial app on Sui, a common place where they can go and find liquidity. It allows them to bootstrap liquidity and grow, which is why Sui has a plethora of DeFi protocols that are all integrated with Deepbook as a liquidity source. SuiNS,
and they're really composable in the true sense.
In a true sense. No need to ask for permission. You can create your own pool, start trading immediately. Market makers are trading on it. Individuals are trading on it. You name it. It's actually very efficient for trading and very, very low cost. SuiNS is a name service, which we believe every app in the ecosystem is already integrating with. So if you come into the Sui ecosystem, whether you're a financial application, your DeFi application, or NFT that's launching, you can give usernames to all your community. It's actually a community building tool, and it's growing significantly as well. I think there are over 300,000 names registered already, and many more subdomains. So forget about top-level domains, and subdomains will be what you can register. And I can create subdomains for myself, like savings at Adeniyi or trash at Adeniyi or whatever, right? You allow users to do that for free. Beyond that, what was the third one you asked me to add?
That's a real internet. I mean, that really is a new internet.
It is the internet. That's the thing. It's the internet, but for value. And nobody's built that. Everybody's building infrastructure, but what we're trying to replace is be the infrastructure for assets or for digital assets. And these are the kind of tools you need to build to allow consumers to engage with it without friction. So they're used to using email notation, and creating a brand new thing doesn't make sense. Let them use email notation for sending assets as well.
Sui Play was the next one.
So Sui Play UX1 is a games console that is it's actually a gaming operating system, which we believe will be the next generation gaming operating system for everybody. It's an operating system that lets you play games from Steam, games from Epic. There'll be more app stores integrated, so you don't have to choose, hey, do I want to buy a Steam Deck, or do I want to buy a PC? Do I want to buy something else? It lets you have a single operating system or single device to play any game you want, and you can earn rewards whether you're playing a Web 2 game or Web 3 game.
Wow.
This operating system will go into, you can dual boot it on your Windows machine, you can install it on your set-top box, it can go anywhere. You can install it on a phone if you want. But a Sui Play device is almost like a premium device that gives you the experience of having that amazing OS, and you can play any game you want. It's very high quality graphics card, high quality screen, very low acquisition price for getting the device. And
is Move the language driving the OS, or is it they communicate?
So it's integrated with Sui directly. So the account on it is ZK login. So you log in with any account you want, and then you're in instantly. And all your assets will be stored under your username directly. And you have an NFT that represents your scoring and your points over time. So yeah, ownership will be deeply integrated into the device. You don't have to choose whether you're a Web 2 game or Web 3 game. It doesn't matter. You just have a device that lets you play any game you want on the go.
Wow. And, we're going to do a deep dive on Walrus in the next segment. Stashed, what's that all about?
So Stashed is actually our play on, if you wanted to rebuild Venmo or you want to rebuild Cash App, you could do that on Sui in a day with a few lines of code. So it's a new world.
Wow.
Like I can, within a day, write an application that lets my users log in with email, send and receive money instantly by using domain names as a way to send and receive money, and have on and off ramps very, very simply. So anybody can build a Cash App on Sui. We ultimately think that's where the world's going to go. Anybody can build apps integrated directly into your application, or just have a standalone application that handles it on behalf of users. So we believe every application that deals with value needs a mechanism to allow users to send and receive value. Stashed is one mechanism for doing that. You can go to getstashed.com today, sign in with Google, Twitch, whatever, and then you instantly have an account. You could choose a username, and people can start sending you money instantly. And now you have USDC natively on Sui. You could use it. It's going to be the most effective way to send and receive USDC as well.
And that was just recently announced, correct? The USDC Circle is now available on Sui?
That's absolutely correct. In fact, if you look at Sui's growth, even without native USDC, Sui is one of the top DeFi protocols in the market. And now with USDC, we've seen what happens once you get native stablecoins. The amount of TVL and the amount of capital that can go into the ecosystem gets supercharged. So we expect that to happen fully on Sui as well.
And given, Stashed, how do you see the role of traditional payment providers, Stripe and PayPal and Venmo and the rest? What do you think is going to happen there?
I think their strong point would ultimately be on and off ramping, because there's still an angle of being able to allow users to frictionlessly on and off ramp that requires a compliance angle. And I think that's going to be their place. But I believe in a world where you've received tokens or you've received dollars or whatever, using that within the ecosystem is going to be commonplace. I should be able to use my USDC to cash out on a website with a few lines of code now. I don't need to have only when I need to on and off ramp is when I need to interact with a party. And that market is getting really, really competitive now. So our hope is that the cost of the on and off ramps should start to go down significantly over time.
Yeah, and if I want to buy a sword from Evan on chain and it's an object and I have USDC, we can swap those, and we
could do that with a protocol without a central party. It's doable today.
That's amazing.
I'll send it through as Santiago.
Perfect. Wow. Okay. So where's the community in all this? We've talked about the developers, the institutions, the enterprises, payments, games, but what about the people? How do they play a role in this besides just users? What else can they do with regards to the Sui ecosystem?
So Sui's got a really exciting community. Honestly, it's been one that's been growing really, really quickly. We started off really, really small, and now, I believe there are 24 million active addresses on Sui today. That's all from the community. Protocols are getting a lot of support from community members. We have people posting YouTube videos. We have people showing walkthroughs. I think there are daily Twitter spaces, commonly with over 100 to 200 people every single day, with people just from community creating their own Twitter spaces. So there's been a lot of organic activity around Sui as people start to play with the protocol. They do a trade on Sui, they try it on Arbitrum, and they realize it's oceans of difference, or they do the same with other networks. It just becomes obvious that this is the way you should be playing. So we find that when people play with Sui, or they look at the code, or they try one of our apps, it's hard to go back. So, and they start to self-evangelize because, they've used it. It's really organic, and that's what we love. It's always been our play from day one, do this organically.
Yeah, self-organized. That's a key thing. When you see community self-organized events, then you have true community, right? Not bot community, not forced, right? This is not something you can fake.
Right.
And we're very, very blessed.
Yeah. All right. Final question. This one's a tough one, I guess. The backbone of the internet includes things like content delivery networks, and now AI and LLMs. This is all very heavy lifting stuff. Where do you see Sui playing a role there? How do you displace the YouTubes of the world and the open AIs, et cetera?
It's a tough problem. It's not going to happen overnight, right? From developer point of view, you have this coordination layer that allow you to solve a lot of problems in a much more efficient way, right? So anything that require human in the middle can be replaced by a decentralized trust software entity, right? That's where you think about it. So if you think about the AI, people talk about agents, right? It's not real yet, but it will happen. It's essentially that, right? They need a decentralized and neutral, mechanism to communicate, to sort of exchange values, exchange assets, and make decisions on behalf of human. That's going to be the mechanism, right? That's what we're talking about, coordination. Right now, we have example of SuiNS, right? For example, the Deepin project that replace human, in the middle, try to coordinate. Oh, you want to print your design on a 3D printer over there, let us connect you. Now using smart contract, using Sui to do that, right? Anything that looks like a two-side marketplace can be easily replaced with that, right? So we're solving that problem. When you talk about LLMs, right? Again, trust, right? How do you think about attribution, of data? How are data used? How do you attribute their contribution to the model? That can be done with a combination of Sui, for managing the ownership, for tracking, as well as storage that's decentralized, can be trusted. No one owns it, that cannot be taken down. It's always available, and you don't have to trust a centralized entity for storing that important information. That's a part of the solution as well. There's more of that we're cooking up.
And I think that's where that provenance discussion comes into play. Exactly. The origination of data and being able to create an object and trace its history. And that's a lot of value comes from that all the way through the LLM process to the outputs.
Yep.
So that's great. Any last thoughts, gentlemen? Opportunity here to share anything with the community that you think is exciting or upcoming. And we hit a lot of things, but I want to give you guys a chance to share last thoughts.
Adeniyi is always the source of alpha.
I'm trying to be very careful. Look, ultimately, I just think with what we're working on, Sui is going to be able to showcase the most compelling consumer adoption cases very, very soon. And there's a lot happening in the background that I can't go into detail on, but it just really exemplifies the work that we've been doing. Our goal is mass adoption. Rather than saying it's actually doing, right? We delivered a protocol upgrade to our network in a year, whereas people have roadmaps for 5 years for upgrades, right? We can actually deliver on what we promise. And enterprise and institutions are starting to see that. They're starting to notice. And we believe we will have the adoption at the scale that we've always wanted. And this technology is going to prove itself in that regard. So we're very, very excited. We're always building, but we have the team capable of actually landing and delivering.
Beautifully said. Well done, gentlemen. I'm very excited for our next session. thank you so much for coming on this Real Vision Masterclass. I'll be watching it myself over to learn what I can. Thank you again, Evan, Adeniyi. Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for sticking around to the end. Look, if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button and check out the video here on the right-hand side. I'm sure you'll enjoy that one as well. And if you're ready for more, go to realvision.com/join. I'll see you there.